Hey everyone, this is MNL2, and today in this video, I want to take a look at all of the roller coasters that reside at Dorney Park and find out which roller coasters are going to deliver the most intense experiences. For the purposes of this video, I will not be including every single coaster at the park in this list, because some of the smaller coasters don't exactly have any intense moments. Also, when I refer to intensity or an intense moment, I mostly interpret it as having a feeling of sheer speed, considerable positive G-forces, or moments that make you feel like you are going to get ripped apart from the ride. Another thing, keep in mind that this list does not reflect how much I like each ride, or how I rank them overall in the park. This list is simply based on which coasters I find to be the most intense. One more thing, if you find yourself enjoying any of my videos or find them interesting, informative, or entertaining in any way, then please feel free to like the video below to help out the channel and to help me to keep providing good content for your enjoyment. Thank you. This 97-year-old PTC wooden roller coaster is often overlooked by everyone, and to be honest, so is Dorney Park in general. I found this park to overall be very underrated and underappreciated, as this place really has some hidden gems. For example, out of all of the old classic out and back woodies that I rode during my trip, this was one of the most memorable. Although I found Blue Streak at Cedar Point and Wild One at Six Flags America to be a little more intense, Thunderhawk was still a really solid coaster when it comes to intensity. The roughness of the ride is perfect, meaning it isn't too smooth to feel boring, and it isn't too rough to where it's terribly painful and uncomfortable. Thunderhawk had some really interesting transitions in banking, as it felt very unnatural during some parts, which in my opinion added to the thrill. The airtime hills aren't going to deliver extremely powerful bursts of airtime, but it is enough to give you that slight adrenaline rush, especially when combined with the awesome head choppers as you race under and through this old wooden structure. Possessed is definitely the least unique roller coaster at Dorney Park. Well, I take that back. Possessed is definitely the least unique major coaster at Dorney Park, as it is a standard Intamin impulse coaster. Hey Dorney, it's still not too late to make this coaster elite. If Six Flags could do it, so can you. Nonetheless, this is a fantastic ride. The sheer speed sensation of rushing back and forth through this ride station is amazing. On top of that, you will actually pull a fair amount of positives as well as laterals as you whip up into that twisted vertical spike. The backwards one will provide mild floater along with its positives. Overall, this roller coaster is really the best definition of short but sweet. That is, if Railblazer, Maverick, Batman clones, Drop Towers, Top Throw Jackster, King to Ka, Accelerator, Stormrunner, I think, Full Throttle, or Pony Express didn't exist. So overall, Possessed is a fun and intense roller coaster with some— Whoa. Pony Express? How did you make your way onto my list of roller coasters that are short but sweet? No. Out you go. You don't deserve to exist. Sorry, Knott's is a fantastic park and all, but this human torture device needs to see its way out ASAFP. And the F stands for frick, cause PG-13 or something. Anyways, Possessed is fun, somewhat intense, and very rewritable if I might add. Alright, so before I go any further, I need to introduce you to someone very special. This is Stanley, and Stanley was adopted and then abducted from his home, Dorney Park, and he now lives in my closet. He keeps the demons out. Anyways, Stanley, Steel Force is a Morgan hypercoaster and is often looked down upon for not delivering any airtime. I'll discuss the airtime in a bit, but first let's talk about the most intense part of this ride. So the first drop and the first giant airtime hill are pretty graceful, not exactly super intense, but the main element on this ride that puts this coaster above Possessed and Thunderhawk has got to be that gigantic, barely banked helix. This coaster, along with Superman Ride of Steel, have some of the largest helixes on a roller coaster that I have ridden. But unlike Ride of Steel's sad excuse for an intense moment, Steel Force's helix is extremely enjoyable. Okay, that might just be because Ride of Steel's restraints are like super uncomfortable in comparison to the thin little pieces of metal sitting on your lap on Steel Force, but either way, Steel Force's gigantic helix pulls in insane combinations of laterals and positives as it drives through this element with a crazy amount of speed. The pacing throughout this section is amazing, and it also throws in a few head chopper moments as well, which really adds to the intensity. Both the positives and the laterals on the helix are insanely sustained and will make you gray out for a fairly long amount of time. It isn't too extreme like the helix found on Goliath, but it's much more like the first turn on Intimidator 305. It's not too much, but it is enough to really feel those positives. Yep, I said it. Anyways, the last part I wanted to talk about was the final series of airtime hills. I'm not going to go that much into detail here, but basically, if you guys have seen my video ranking Cedar Point's coasters by intensity, then the way I described Magnum XL's 200's final series of hills is exactly how I feel about Steel Force's. but better. The final series of hills on Steel Force just felt way more aggressive than Magnum's. The reason I prefer Steel Force's hills over Magnum's though is because on Magnum, those hills really only hit the hardest towards the front of the train, but on Steel Force, they will hit really hard no matter where you are sitting. Though this off-ride footage makes it look like it's crawling, I can reassure you that when you are actually riding it, it is super duper intense. So Hydra the Revenge was the coaster that I was looking forward to the most before visiting Dorney Park, and for a good reason. You wanna know that reason? 2 words. JoJo roll. As much as I would love to talk about this JoJo roll and how much incredible hang time it delivers, and also how it is the coolest element on any B&M floor list that I have ridden, especially considering that it occurs immediately after dispatching out of the station before it even goes up the lift, well, It doesn't exactly count as being intense, but I still feel like mentioning it. Anyways, even without the JoJo roll, this is a super solid and intense roller coaster. This is also easily one of the most unique floorless coasters out there, and is currently my number 2 B&M floorless, only behind Bizarro at Six Flags Great Adventure. This ride has such a unique layout, and also the first drop alone is amazing because unlike most B&M floorlesses out there, this coaster does not have a pre-drop, but instead immediately goes down its drop down a hill right as you detach from the chain. Then comes a pretty unique inclined dive loop, which actually provided a strange feeling of positives, laterals, and that classic B&M snap. Then comes a snappy 0G roll, immediately followed by a snappy corkscrew, which are both experienced with a great amount of momentum. Then comes probably the weirdest shaped cobra roll that I've ever seen. It didn't particularly feel any different than a standard cobra roll, but it certainly looked really cool. This coaster continues to be strange and unique as it sends you into 2 back-to-back airtime hills. On a floorless coaster. Look, I don't want to throw shade at Busch Gardens, but like, how does this ride manage to have stronger airtime than Apollo's Chariot?
Wow, there's like little airtime.
I don't understand. I get that Apollo was the first B&M Hyper, but Wonder Woman was the first RMC Raptor, and if it's anything like Railblazer, then oh boy, what a ride. Seriously though, B&M, we need to see less of these stock cookie cutter rides and more of these LSD trip fever dream creations. Yeah, that's how I just described Hydra. Anyways, the final corkscrew on Hydra is also fun. Overall, it's a very intense experience in my eyes. So remember when I said that this park has hidden gems? Well, although Stanley and Hydra are both extremely epic coasters, there is one coaster that was absolutely stunning. Coaster I really believe deserves more recognition, because I seriously don't see how people never talk about this ride. Talon is a B&M inverted coaster, and is surprisingly on the much larger size. It's not as gigantic as Banshee or Alpengeist, but it is still a monster of a ride. I feel like this ride was basically Raptor at Cedar Point, but done way better. This coaster easily had the strongest positive G-forces out of any coaster at Dorney Park, with its first drop, vertical loop, and transition into the dive loop all making me gray out, causing my vision to really decay. Believe it or not, but this coaster also utilizes the terrain beautifully, as it dives into a leg chopper pit after traversing the snappy 0G roll. There's also that iconic super low to the ground final helix that sends you flying literally inches above the ground while you are extremely banked. Everything else in between is definitely strong, especially that turnaround after the dive loop, and then probably one of the most underrated moments on an inverted coaster. It's a somewhat steep drop approached with a ton of speed, as this coaster has outstanding pacing. This drop is not curved, and it delivers such an epic moment of float or airtime as you pick up even more speed diving down. This moment is something you really won't see on pretty much any other inverted coaster aside from Alpengeist drop off the mid-course, but even then this is still pretty unique. The corkscrew is generic and isn't as aggressive as Flight Decks or the Batman clones as corkscrews, but it is still a solid part of this overall insanely intense experience. Seriously, if you had no reason to visit Dorney Park before seeing this video, then I really hope that I just gave you that reason to go out and visit Dorney Park because of this freaking legendary roller coaster, Talon, the Grip of Fear, the most intense roller coaster that you can experience at Dorney Park. Anyways, those are my thoughts regarding the coasters of Dorney Park and how they compare to one another when it comes to intensity. Keep in mind that this list is solely based on my own personal opinions, and I fully understand that some of you might completely disagree with anything or literally everything on this list. So if that's the case, feel free to comment down below what you find to be the most intense roller coaster at Dorney Park, or the most intense roller coaster that you've ridden is. But anyways, if you did end up enjoying the video, then please remember to leave a like and subscribe with notifications turned on so you'll be alerted whenever I upload a new video. But until then, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.